Hello, welcome back to another episode of A Bit of This and a Bit of That. My name is Yulyah Baharani, and in a moment, I am going to be talking about one of my favorite musicians whose lyrics and melody have been with me for as long as I can remember. His name is John Mayer, and I am beyond excited to bring this episode to you. Stay tuned! So, before we get to the main stuff, I want to share something first about how I plan to do this episode. It was actually a bit hard to make an outline for this episode because there's simply too much I can talk about, but then without outline and limitation, this episode would be around 5 hours just me talking to myself pretending that I had an audience, and that's obviously not good. I also initially wanted to make this into several segments, from his early life, then all of his albums one after one, then my favorite records from each album, then all his other stuff. But again, since I will be talking by myself and I most probably will be very excited and emotional, I figured it might be too long because, again, there's too much I can talk about. So I kind of debated with myself over and over again which one I should mention here and which one I should just keep for myself and probably just put it into writing instead later on my blog. So the main concept for this episode is John Mayer, his music and his life, told from my perspective as a huge fan of his. Since I read a lot about him, I have got so many references about his music and the way he approached music, but I decided it would be too pretentious to talk about that, since it's not in my capacity to talk about music, like music. So I will just focus on my very personal take, personal understanding, and I guess I can call it personal gain that I get from his music. I would talk in length about his career, but you can find it yourself, all in detail, through some simple typing and click on Google, so I am going in a rather different direction. I decide to make this episode as personal as possible. I love John Mayer for a perfectly selfish reason, because his songs, his music have been with me every step of the way, especially when my life was at its worst period. I don't understand much about music, especially music theoretically. I can't play a single tune on guitar or any musical instrument, but I can feel music in my heart. I enjoy music. I am confident about my love of music. Anyway, that's how we're going to do this episode. I will begin with some information about his early life, just so those who are not as deep into him as I am can follow, and hopefully provide the general description or general idea of what kind of human John Mayer is and how it shapes the kind of musician he is along the way. So, John Clayton Mayer was born on the 16th of October 1977 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. He is the second child of 3 siblings, older brother Carl and younger brother Ben. His parents are both educators, have retired now, I believe, so he said becoming a professional musician as a career was never in the picture. Though he said that his love of music was pretty much influenced by the kind of shows he consumed at his house in his childhood, where he said good music was available everywhere on every channel on television. Though that probably is because he grew up in the 80s, where good music was at its best period and were really a huge part in life and shown on television almost all the time. He first discovered his fascination with guitar from the movie Back to the Future, where the protagonist Marty McFly had a guitar performance. At age 13, his father rented him and his brother a guitar to learn from a local shop, and that became his first full exposure to a complete guitar. John realized early on that he somehow would make guitar a lifelong thing. In 1994, together with his friends, John started to play shows at local all ages clubs. He started writing songs at 17, and when he realized that he knew of no one who could sing those songs, he started to sing it himself. I think it shows from early on about John's love of music and his plan to do music. I was quite fascinated seeing his high school graduation quote, which for me was really, really mature. Like he knew since then what he was going to do, what he planned to achieve, and what to do to achieve that. After graduating high school in 1997, he briefly attended Berklee College of Music, where he met lots of people who shared the same love of music, and one of them was Clay Cook, who later formed a duo with him. And that's where he also realized he didn't really want to continue studying music in classroom anymore. He had formed this sort of mission statement for his future as a musician, and that mission statement didn't incorporate studying at Berklee anymore. After coming home in Christmas and deciding not to go back to Berklee, in 1998 he left for Georgia. He moved to Atlanta and has a duo with Clay Cook. They wrote some songs together. Some are my favorite to this day. Comfortable is my favorite, and Neon is obviously everyone's favorite among everyone's favorite songs of his. Not long after that, he decided to go solo. I read somewhere that one of the things that influenced that decision was the difference in idea on how they're going to further pursue music, but that's what I read. Might be wrong. Anyway, after going solo, he started to play in Atlantis Club, and that's also the beginning of internet and World Wide Web. So there's a lot of exposure in internet and digital world that his music got. In 24th of September 1999, John self-released his first EP, Inside One's Out, and in 2000, after one of his performances, John was discovered by a record label that signed him. Then in 2001, he released Room for Squares, and that's when he had his breakthrough on the mainstream scene, with TV appearances, radio, and live performances on a whole bigger scale than his previous performances. And one single from that album, Your Body is a Wonderland, met with such huge success that it particularly catapulted his career, and the rest is history. John has since released 14 albums, consist of 7 studio albums and 7 live albums, 24 singles, has won 7 Grammys, has played in clubs and arenas around the world, has collaborated with various musicians across genres. Now the world knows John Mayer as many things, but one thing everyone could agree on is that he is an amazing songwriter, a great guitarist, and a passionate musician. I love to watch John's interviews from his early days. His old stuff are fascinating to me because I only got to know him around 2008, and by then he had won Grammys and sold millions of records worldwide. He had experienced the peak in his career, so to listen to him singing and talking about life, about his music and his projected career, it gives a sort of melancholic feeling. It's hilarious to see his younger self on interviews, the way he carries himself with peculiar sense of humor, overflowing confidence, philosophical take on life and on his music career. I don't understand music, of course, at least theoretically, but I am rather confident to say that I understand what he say when talking about his music. I am almost tone deaf, but I love music. For some people, John is regarded as a guitar genius, which I can't believe I let those words coming out of my mouth because I have no rights to say anything about guitar. I cannot play one single key to save my life. Although one could feel the music and say something about it, and that is valid. That's me justifying myself. I still remember having Ed Sheeran Grammy performance of Thinking Out Loud on replay. God knows for how long. Because it sounds outrageously good. But really, that performance was beyond epic. Herbie Hancock on the piano, Questlove on drum, and John on guitar, and the backup singers as well. It couldn't be better. Also, every performance from Where the Light Is, that was an insanely epic live album, honestly. Actually, I love all John's live performances. I enjoy watching like 5 live performances of the same song because the way he played was always a bit different and I enjoy them all. It is also interesting to see the dynamic of his career and his personal life and how those two influence each other. He acknowledged that having success from early on could be damaging. So, with the success of his previous albums, then Continuum happened, the growing success, he became a commodity of gossip tabloids, mainly because of his own doing. He once explained about this. He said that interview paparazzi at times made him uncomfortable, and if he is uncomfortable, he became insincere, and those words, statements spoken out of insincerity, backfired at him. Miscalculation is the word he used to describe the course of that period in his life. But he is a good man, and I am just glad he owned up to all those mistakes. Graffiti, that is such an important song for me because of that part in his life. It is a reminder to stay off the temptation to things that will bring him down because of fame and money and success, and all those things could be overwhelming. He, in my opinion, very successfully came back from the period, and I am very grateful that he survived, not just from the controversy and the vultures that is media, but also his throat problem in which he ended up having surgery and had to postpone the release of Born and Raised. I love that album, Born and Raised. I just love what it represents and that it is his comeback after a sort of problematic period. It was also a turmoil period, not only from his image, with his problem with the media and how he was being portrayed, but he was also having problem with his voice. And I once read that because the problem with his vocal cords seemed never ending, he was actually prepared to perform and continue his career as a session player. And thank God that didn't happen. Him moving to a ranch in Montana was also a very significant decision in his life. He experienced a sort of healing process there. Then came Paradise Valley, which take lots of inspiration from his life in Montana, and then later The Search for Everything, his latest studio album. When asked what record he was proud of, John answered Continuum because it's composed when he was not escorted, and is a representative work of his. He picked Born and Raised as his most incredible experience making an album. Graffiti is his ultimate song, everything he wants a song to be. And I love the way he navigates his creative side after reaching that ultimate quality he intended to create quite early on in his career. Even to my ears, who understand about was nothing about music, John's songs all sound like each has their own clear character, and his style vary from one album to another. I cannot imagine in my head the kind of creative process that goes into every single record he worked on, every single performance. It is very clear to me that he's eager to learn and try out new things. His work with John Mayer Trio, for example, with blues music, it's an answer to his fans from his early days, where the connection between him and his listeners were still very close-knit since he was yet to become this sort of pop star. He made that trio and released album as that trio as a way to say that he is still there. He's still the guy people knew him for. Also, his collaborations with many artists from various genres, then his writing and comedy stuff, he is everywhere and doing excellent. And for me, that is extremely inspiring, that even at his position where he never stopped learning. to have achieved so much, to be content with your current place and still challenging yourself to keep learning, keep trying new stuff, keep improving in any way is something not everyone can do, and it is absolutely admirable. And he's one of the things that I really enjoy about John Mayer. His sense of humor is just outstanding. I mean, let alone the official stuff he does with Dave Chappelle, just the way he runs his Instagram page, his current mood series, even his interview on television and radio. He is hilarious. At times, I think he's weird, but in a good way. He has a rather odd sense of humor, and the amount of self awareness he has over his creative side is simply outstanding. I don't remember where he said this, but I remember he once talked about how sometimes that what you think is amazing and what your audience think is amazing couldn't be more different, and how he tried to navigate between those two. I know it's impossible for me to really understand what he meant because I don't have the same creative life as he does, but I get it. I mean, I have blogs, sometimes stuff I spend my most effort and considered my best, they didn't get the response I wanted and I thought they deserved. But then stuff I just do in the spur of moment with little effort, surprisingly well received. I mean, it probably is that way as well for him, only on a different level. A whole different level. Can't even be compared. And I think for someone who is interested in or is learning about creative writing, it will be very insightful to listen to what John has to say about the process of songwriting and the process of writing in general. He writes from a very personal experience, but he makes it to somehow suit every person in the sense that everyone listening to that song would think of their own story, forgetting that it's actually about John's. For me personally, I always think about John's songs as extremely well made, but does not feel calculated. It is raw and very personal, and yet it is designed in a way to form a sort of connection where everybody will connect to that song in their own personal way. I once read an article about John and it's so beautiful, I actually jotted down. I am not sure if this is the exact quote of or if I am paraphrasing a little, but it says this. The essence of John Mayer's music is honest, nostalgic, and raw. It is metaphorical and yet direct. John Mayer makes music that describes what you are going through, even if you don't realize you're going through something. He finds the metaphors and analogies that help life make sense, even when it doesn't. That's beautiful, isn't it? There's this article on the Washington Post titled, "Why Isn't John Mayer's Music as Weird as John Mayer?" I don't necessarily like or agree on what's written in that article, but I remember thinking it was funny, and I can see why many people could think that way about him. An article on Forbes written by Steve Walton, I actually remember his name because I have read a lot of pieces he wrote. The specific article I am talking here is the one titled "Why John Mayer is Music's Forgotten Superstar." And that article for me explains really well about why John Mayer is the John Mayer, exactly the way he is perceived. The ever-beloved musician despite his quite unusual personality, with listeners ranging from his loyal fans to the casual listeners who perhaps only relate to one of his songs or two. For me, just things like he allows audio taping in his shows, that even though he has become so big since many years ago, the fact that he still shows up in small stages with intimate performance and intimate little audience, I think it speaks really loud about his philosophy on his music and the consumers of his music, the relationship, the dynamics between those two. He may be odd, unusual, peculiar, sometimes full of himself, But he is honest, he is objective to himself and what he's capable of. He is very eloquent as well. I am sure even if I am not as huge fan as his, I will still enjoy listening to him talking and sharing his thoughts. He is such an intelligent, very deep, thoughtful person. His side of depth and maturity is often overlooked because he jokes a lot and he has some reputation, the residue of the old times. But he is intelligent and he is very thoughtful, and that side for me, more than in interviews, at least in a different way than in interviews, that side of him comes out best in his music, his songwriting. And what I really find fascinating is how easy I understand him and how easy I relate to him, how easy his story resonates with me, despite me having a life that could not be more different than his. My story of John, of his music, is particularly enhanced through many experiences I have had in which his songs play important roles. I will share some of those experiences in this episode in attempt to make this episode even more personal than it already is. So the first story, I actually shared the story on Instagram in the beginning of this year, but it happened around 2017 or 2018, I'm not sure. It's funny when I think about this sometimes that I remember some moment very clearly, how it happened, where it happened, how I felt back then. But when it comes to the exact time, I find it hard to recall sometimes. The case with this moment is especially because it happened, it was in my hardest period in life with my illness and all the problems in my personal life. I was battling self-harm and suicide thoughts on a daily basis at that time. So my head, at least I like to think of it this way, that it is my head's own mechanism to protect me. As if it says, just remember the good things, remember that I survived and leave out all the rest. So in short, I felt crappy that day, full of anger and disappointment to myself. And I love to walk to ease my mind when I don't feel good. But that day, walking did not work out so well, so I went to a supermarket to treat myself some food in attempt to get better. And the thing that actually saved that day was a song by John played through the speaker in the supermarket. I will just read what I wrote on Instagram. I remember that day. I was strolling around the densely crowded supermarket to find my way to the cashier. As I maneuvered my trolley among the throngs of people to find a spot in one of the queuing lines, with a contorted face high on concentration, I heard a familiar melody out of the speaker, one I would recognize anytime, putting me on a momentary halt immediately. It had been a hard one that particular day. I had walked for around 4 kilometers prior to doing grocery, an attempt to feel better, which had not worked out so well, and upon hearing that melody, I felt myself releasing the tension I had felt all day. I felt my body slowly became at ease. I was always like that. I have a soft spot for things that carry nostalgia, be it smell, sound, or faces. They have power to get me easily overwhelmed. And there were times being overwhelmed actually functioned to my good interest. I still remember that day very clearly, how a smile slowly and surely crept up on my tired face, how the loud crowd no longer annoyed me, how I came close to dance walking on my way home, how everything somehow turned alright, just because of one single song, a song called Why Georgia, which I happen to like a lot and still do. Anyway, that's what I wrote on Instagram. When I think of what happened that day, that moment, it still brings a huge smile. That was such a special day. Anyway, the next story I will share happened at the time of John's concert in Indonesia. So at the time, I had saved money. I always had my saving, and it was more than enough to attend his concert, to buy ticket, for accommodation, hotel and stuff, transportation. I had enough. I had saved enough. But at the time, as I said in the previous story, I had been sick. It had been going on in years actually. Sometimes it is alright. I could just take my medicine on my own and take care of what I eat. But then other times, it was not quite alright. So I had to go to hospital to go through treatment. And in the story, I was very much in a serious condition, which happened at the period of when John had scheduled his concert in Indonesia. I just couldn't use the money to attend a gig because I thought I'd better save it for future hospital bills and other things I would need in the middle of my treatment. The rational side of me kind of held me back at that time, no matter how much I loved John and how much I wanted to be among the audience in that concert. When I think about this now, I think it was probably because my parents were still responsible for a portion of my hospital bill. I just could not use the money for other purposes, even though that money I could use for purchasing the ticket was not theirs. Actually, it was my own money. But I don't know, it just didn't settle well with me. And I still remember my bitter smile after claiming my medicine at the hospital pharmacy and calculating the amount of money I would need to the end of my medication at that time. Okay, that's too much information. Anyway, I will attend his concert one day, inshallah. And I should be healthy for that, body and mind. So yeah, cheer for me and for us all. In the 4 years of my most turbulent period in life, there are so many stories like this. The situations details vary from one another, but I remember John's songs to be part of many moments. My recollection of moments is getting distorted nowadays, especially with COVID-19, that makes life moves kind of in an abnormal way with a blurry timeline, at least in my head. But I don't think it is my personal problem though. I think it is blurry for many people. But anyway, for my own case, when remembering those moments, thank God when I see some pictures or listen to the same song or even reading stories that other people shared, I still remember each moment. I could remember each moment and what I felt back then very clearly. I remember one day, I had gone out of therapy at that time, so this must happened sometimes around the end of last year. I felt unsettled that day and I walked around 10 kilometers to find a sort of, I don't know, peace of mind. And I walked with his songs as my company. I still remember feeling tired, but feeling happy and grateful for my life. Some songs of his, of John's, like Shadow Days, or In Repair, or Changing, or Born and Raised, they have this soothing effect on me, like a friend telling it's going to be alright, hang in there, time will somehow take care. I don't know, that, even talking about this is emotional for me. I don't know why, but some of his songs really have that I don't know, that moving effect on me, that overwhelming effect. I don't know how to describe it. And that day when I walked 10 kilometers is also a kind of challenge for myself, because I walked through unfamiliar routes, meeting lots of strangers with genuine smiles, exchanging warm greetings and gesture of decency and respect. Those people I met along the way, I'm sure, have their own problems unknown to me, and I met them with this heavy heart unknown to them, but we all share the same love of life and of fellow human beings. And I love to think about that. That is such a beautiful thing about being human. And it is even more special because for me, as an avid fan of John Mayer, it is very special because his songs became my company for the long 10 kilometers I walked that day. There's also the story of a drive with my dad from his workplace with John's music in the radio, and this one is among my most favorite memories of me and my dad and of my life in general. It is a moment sculpted by time to find its way in my perspective as a perfect moment. And who doesn't love perfect moment, right? Oh, anyway, I have to tell you this. So, Paper Doll is my father's favorite song from John, aside from Born and Raised, but just because I kind of force him to like Born and Raised, since it never not played when I play music, especially in the car. So, yeah. I have got some anecdotes about my love of John Mayer, which happens so often, like hearing his songs from somewhere when I was walking, or on TV shows, and it completely brightens my day. I don't know why, but John's music is used very frequently in Korean TV shows that I watch. Like I remember a show, a semi-documentary about expedition to see penguin in Argentina, and while making draft for what they should do that day, the crew for that documentary, for that TV show, played Continuum as their company, as their background music, I don't know, and it made me feel immensely happy. I can't even explain why it made me that happy. I'm just happy that other people find comfort in John Mayer's songs just like I do. It is a beautiful feeling, and I don't know why. I don't know how to explain why it is the way it is. There's this funny story I want to share. So one morning, while listening to John Mayer songs, I want to look him up on internet suddenly, and I found a blog with a very interesting writing. I remember he wrote about John's growth, and if I'm not mistaken, the blog is run by someone who knows John from early on, before he had a career as a sort of pop star. So myself, I had no idea why. Myself thought it was a good idea to leave a long ass comment on that blog. Oh my god. It is run by a certain Mr. Pollock, if I remember correctly. Oh dear. I hate myself and I hate being impulsive sometimes. I still cringe when I think about that. Like I want to go back to that blog and delete my comment, but I forget that blog. I could find it if I try, but I decided to just leave it and pray that comment will never be read. John Mayer, his life, his music, I don't know. Being a fan of his and following his music and some bits and pieces of his life has been a very wonderful journey, I could say. And in particular about John's music, sometimes John's songs feel welcoming and make me happy, but then some other times it is welcoming, but leave an aftertaste, one that doesn't taste so good. It was a complicated feeling. I actually called my experience with John's songs an intricacy because it is an intricate experience, an intricate feeling. Like there is one time I was about to sit down after placing my order in a diner, and his new song at that time, New Light, was played. And random moment like that could really transform my day. I don't know, song like Clarity as well. It could make bad day, a worse day to somehow feel alright. But then some other times, listening to his songs, it brings an overwhelming emotion that could practically numb me, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel a lot, but I can't identify what I feel at that moment. Songs like Edge of Desire, Emoji of a Wave, I hate those songs sometimes. I seriously felt like a masochist sometimes when I was not in a good condition, but chose to listen to those songs. When I was in my period of trying to move on after a long relationship came to an end, listening to his song Comfortable was suffocating, literally suffocating. But still, it is my favorite song, and I listened to it even more when I was feeling blue. I mean, how ridiculous! How ridiculous, really. I am thankful for those moments, nevertheless, no matter how ridiculous. And I am thankful for John, who without even knowing, without him even realizing, has been a constant part in my pursuit of happiness. And I only realized later on that almost all my playlists have John songs, and I listen to him in almost all kind of situation, and he has songs for all those situations. As a fan, an avid fan, I can call myself, I do admit that John Mayer has this peculiar air surrounding him that might translate to being cocky to some people. And I would not say I know him very much, since it's simply not true and doesn't make any sense, impossible. Because I could only know him as what he presents as himself to his fans, to the public, but I believe he is genuine. In every bits and pieces where he get to explain himself, I believe he was being honest and genuine. And I don't know. Uh, I just want other people to know that he is a good person and that following him is um, a meaningful experience. Oh my god, this is anyway. Oh, I just remember this one. There's this one moment where John Mayer he tried to explain why being him is a sensitive extrovert. He called it that way. Was very difficult. I can't remember who he said this, but I remember laughing so much at that. Laughing like it is funny in a ridiculous but endearing way, and it was almost like that with following John. But anyway, I was genuinely fascinated by him. Most of the times, entertained, also inspired. I am a fan of his as a musician, but I am also a fan of his just as a human being who happened to be a very popular musician. I know it won't happen, but I can see myself being friend with him genuinely. That's anyway. So people go listen to him, even if you're not so keen on music or on listening to him talking about music. The human John is just as interesting. His view on stuff, on life, on creativity. It is a broad potential to find inspiration when listening to John Mayer's talking and explaining his view, his thought. And it is comfortable as well to like him, to be a fan of his. I mean, I myself, I can roll my eyes when I see him talking silly. I can shake my head when he's being weird or ridiculous. But that doesn't change the fact that I love and admire him, both as John Mayer the musician, the songwriter, and John Mayer the person, the human being. We're getting to the end. I think I have said all I want to say about this John Mayer that I love and adore. I remember John once talked about why he quit Berkeley, that he wants to make music that is listenable. I personally believe he has achieved that multiple times over. I think it is really an amazing feat, an amazing achievement to be recognized as a somewhat cult hero with loyal following who dig everything he has put out, especially his guitar playing and his blues music, but at the same time also loved and enjoyed by the wider average music fans. I wish I could play some of my favorite songs of his, but I can't for obvious reason, copyright. And that's too bad. But hey, you guys could play his songs right after listening to this podcast. And I will also put some material for you who are interested in knowing more about John as a musician and as a person. There will be a documentary, some radio shows, interviews, and articles. You can check those information on my blog at Page Podcast. I put the link to my blog in the description of this podcast. Anyway, go look for it. I will close this episode with a poem from John Mayer's album, The Search for Everything. How sad it is that time should pass, Her Majesty the hourglass. We take the sand of bygone years and make mirth of it with all our tears. What is now compared to then? And will I ever love again? The answer to the answer brings the endless search for everything. A musician I love once said this about his life and his music. Just sing it. Admit to yourself however you feel it. His name is John Mayer. And this is the end of the 10th episode of A Bit of This and a Bit of That. Thank you for tuning in. And until the next episode, bye!